8 o'clock, we got number 13 BYU traveling to Utah State. BYU is only favored by 9.5 points in this game on CBS Sports Network. So let's look at BYU's season so far, because they have defeated 3 Power 5 opponents, 3 Pac-12 opponents, because they are an independent team. They're going to play teams not in their conference because they don't have really a conference. They just bounce around from conference to conference. They started out their season with a barely win. One of their 2 one-possession wins. They had a 24-16 win over Arizona, which is interesting now looking back on it because, again, they were playing Arizona. Arizona kind of sucks. So the fact that it was only an 8-point win is kind of weird considering how good BYU has been this year. They had a 26-17 win over number 21 Utah, which was a huge upset at the time, but now looking back on it, because Utah was ranked 21st in the nation, not a huge upset. And then they won 27-17 against number 19 Arizona State, who Arizona State has looked like a very good football team outside of that one game. So that is a good win for BYU on its record. Then they had the 35-27 game against South Florida, which is very disconcerting if you're a BYU fan, because USF does not have a good football team right now. So it's like, don't really want bad. No, I do not want USF giving them a close game. But last game, Baylor Romney, their quarterback, did have a good game. He went 20 of 25, threw for 305 yards and 3 touchdowns. Tyler Algier had 15 carries for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns, and their receiver Gunnar Romney, replacing Dax Milne from last year, had 5 receptions for 119 yards and a touchdown. Now Utah State, on the other hand, had a very good start to the season. Unfortunately, they had a fall from grace last week against Boise State, but this is hoping to be a bounce-back game. They ended up with a good win week 1. They ended up having a huge 26-23 victory at Washington State, so they have a win against a Power 5 opponent. Then they went on to the next week and destroyed North Dakota, a 48-24 victory. And then they had a 49-45 win at Air Force. Air Force at that point was undefeated, so it was a very good win there. Fortunately for them, they ended up playing a 1-2 Boise State team that looked possibly beatable, but they got absolutely crushed 27-3. But it is Boise State. Boise State has had almost everyone in the Mountain West's number outside of Fresno State for a long time. Boise State has been that dominant force in the Mountain West. But how'd their quarterback do? Logan Bonner, the transfer from Arkansas State, which is interesting. Utah State hired a new head coach and they got their quarterback, Logan Bonner. If you did not know, Arkansas State's head coach decided to leave Arkansas State and go to Utah State, and he brought his starting quarterback along with him, Logan Bonner. Logan Bonner had before that game looked phenomenal, but obviously his stats last game was not good. He threw for 11 of 25, threw for 173 yards and 2 interceptions. Calvin Tyler Jr., the running back, had a good day on the ground, which is you need to get the ball more to him. He had 20 carries for 126 yards. And Brandon Bowling had 4 receptions for 62 yards. Obviously not the best day through the air for him. How's BYU against Utah State normally? BYU is 49-37 against Utah State all time, and they have a 1-game win streak. So BYU has dominated this series most of the time, but still Utah State could get a huge win to get back in this thing. I think this is going to be an interesting game. Unfortunately, I do not have CBS Sports Network, so I'm not going to be able to watch it, but I did think if you do have it, this is an interesting and really good possible game to watch. Logan Bonner, despite the stats I read to you, is still a very good quarterback in a Mountain West conference. BYU is still a top 15 team, and it's going to be interesting. I think this game is going to be way closer than a lot of people expect it to be. Again, 9.5 point spread indicates that while it's still 9.5 points, and that is still like winning by 10 points covers, this is still a top 15 team, and it's showing how much respect they have for Utah State in this game. This is the first game, by the way, BYU's going on the road for. All their other games have been at home. So first game on the road for BYU. It's going to be interesting. I think I'm going to take Utah State to cover, but BYU to win.